Everyone, I want to greet you with lots of love, peace, and positivity. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing wonderful, heading on into work today, and I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. I uploaded a video on the way home from work. Was it home or on the way to work? I can't remember. On the way home from work yesterday to speak on the topic dealing with the question: why do conscious leaders fight with each other? And they do it so often. And uh, when I say conscious, that term is relative. And obviously, if you have people who are supposed internet-based leaders and they're quote unquote conscious, how can you be conscious and provide an appropriate example of leadership when you're fighting amongst each other all the time? That's the great paradox, and that's why that's part of the con too. By the way, the con in so-called consciousness. That if you are in fact conscious, then you should be building with people, not just the people that you're supposedly leading, but also the people who are supposed leaders as well. People who you've interacted with, people that you've actually worked with in the past, and at some point you were friends, and so forth and so on. So there's been so much going on, and it's been going on for many years. But in particular, I gave an example of something that is more recent, and that's dealing with Dr. Boyce Watkins and Yvette Carnell. So I posed the question yesterday: why do conscious leaders fight with each other? And why do they fight with each other so much? And I wanted to do a follow-up video yesterday after I got home, where I could sit down and actually go through some material, but I didn't. I ran out of time. All right. Hey, how's it going, everybody in the chat room too? And this is going to be a brief video, so I'm not going to be in the chat room because I'm like halfway at work already. They asked me to come in at 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. As opposed to my normal time, which is 4 p.m. So I just got that text, and I jumped in the shower. I had just woken up. I jumped in the shower, just had me some apples and bananas, and I'm on my way to work right now. But one of the things I wanted to share inside this video was I was very intrigued by many of the messages that were left on the video that I posted yesterday. And not everyone agreed with what I was saying, or at least some of what I was saying, but most people recognized what I was saying. There was one post that I had to delete simply because there's something that I don't tolerate on my page. I really don't. And one is that there's a couple of things that I don't tolerate. One is when people start to try to personally insult you or insult me. I just don't have time for that. I think as adults we have to conduct ourselves in a particular manner. And that's why, like, even with these so-called conscious leaders who are always insulting each other and they're always fighting with each other, I think it's an inappropriate behavior for an adult. It sets a very poor example for leadership. It sets a very poor example for manhood, for womanhood, for what it means to be a black man or what it means to be a black woman, for that matter. So I don't participate in that, and you guys are not going to hear me going back, and I'm not going to be, insulting people. I just don't do that. I don't allow that inside my home amongst my children. We grew up in a culture, my siblings and I, wherein we always teased each other and we called each other names. It was very abusive, and that's one of the things in the African American community. Not all of us do it, but many of us do it. We were very abusive with each other, with each other in regards to how we speak to each other, the words that we use. You're nappy headed, you're big lipped, you're black, you're ugly. You're back in the day, you're big booty. Nowadays, your flat booty. I mean, it goes on and on and on. You know, your dark skin, your light skin. It goes on. It's all the language of abuse. It's the language of hate, and we do it to each other all the time. These black leaders do it. These so-called internet-based conscious black leaders do it to each other all the time. I don't participate, and I think it is something that is very inappropriate. It sets a very poor example. I don't tolerate it in my home. I don't tolerate it amongst my children. If I'm not going to tolerate it with my own children, I'm definitely not going to be tolerating with grown adults here on YouTube or anywhere for that matter. People at my job, they sometimes, when they talk to each other, they insult each other. It's something that is kind of acceptable, and everyone plays along. They don't do that with me, because there's been in the time, and there's, except one guy, but he's a little off, and I've accepted that. I have to have more compassion for him. They tried that with me, but what I tend to do is I remain silent, or I give them a look, and they figure it out. Okay, he doesn't play that game, and so they don't do that to me. They may do it with each other, but they don't do that to me. So I don't tolerate that on my YouTube page. Another thing I don't tolerate is when people take what I say and twist it and try to say that I said something I didn't say. I'm sorry if you misconstrue. It's one thing if you don't understand. Okay, I can understand that. But if you try to, no, so this part, the message that I deleted, those were two things that were in that message. And there was also things in there that simply were not true. If you're going to say something, state a fact. Okay, if you're going to say something, or if you're going to post something, make sure that it's true. don't post something that's simply not true. Okay, so there was one post, I just can't tolerate that. The name calling, look, I'm sorry, that's part of the problem. That's part of what I'm speaking to when I talk about these so-called conscious leaders beefing with each other all the time. That's part of the problem, the name calling and disrespecting each other. So I want to say that with you all, and people left some very interesting comments. Again, I'm not choosing sides on any level with any of these individuals. What I'm pointing out is how this type of behavior is counterproductive, and it sets a very poor example for other people, especially younger people, to see. That's my whole point. And and if we spend so much time fighting with each other and demeaning each other, how is it that you're going to quote unquote build amongst black folk if you spend so much time fighting with other black folk? And that was one of the comments that was kind of left. Someone said something else too. Here we are. We don't as black folk, we don't have institutions. We don't have a grocery store. And I thought about that. It really shook me. Like, do I know any black-owned grocery stores? Have I ever known any? And I can't think of any. We don't have a grocery store. We don't have a school. Well, there are schools. It says something else that we, and yet we allow our egos to get in the way of us building things together, and we fight with each other all the time. That really struck me. If y'all go to the video from yesterday and look at that comment, I meant to reply, I just didn't have time because I had to get sleep throughout the day. I slept 3 hours here, and I spent time with my wife. We watched the new Denzel Washington movie, which is really good. Go to sleep for a couple hours, wake up, spend some time watching movies with my children, go back to sleep for an hour. So that's what I didn't have time to do anything else pretty much for yesterday. But I wanted to reply to that message because it was so very true. So very true. This is a problem, and it's something that needs to stop. Part of my message and what I was really trying to get to, and that's what I wanted to kind of explore in a full video. I just didn't have the time yesterday. Was the whole point of the video that I did yesterday, and really what I'm doing now, is the point is to outline the behavior and to also outline why the behavior must stop. And the truth is that it can stop. It doesn't take too much. One or the other, whether you're dealing with Tariq Nasheed and Umar Johnson, or you're dealing with Yvette Carnell, Boyce Watkins. I mean, there's so many different examples that we can give out there. It doesn't matter what the example is. I can understand there's a disagreement, there's a misunderstanding, and then people get riled up and then they go. I understand that can happen, but for how long? How long is reasonable? Is it even reasonable in the first place? I'm not quite sure. Maybe it is, but how long? How long does it keep going on? And when does it get to the point where it's no longer about a conflict of interest or maybe a disagreement in terms of philosophy, and it becomes personal? See, a lot of this other stuff has become personal. I heard Boyce Watkins, and there's no reason for him to say this, that Yvette Carnell, that her girlfriend, is a white woman. Why do you even say that? Why bring up her sexual orientation in the first sense? But then you also have to outline your belief that she is her quote-unquote girlfriend or her partner is a woman or is a white woman. Why do that? See, that's personal. See, a lot of this, it gets to the point where it becomes personal, and that's a problem in and of itself. So part of what I really want to get to, and I wish I had more time, but I'm at work already, is the importance of recognizing when things go too far. I can understand people have a disagreement. Okay, well, squash the beef. Be adults about it. You don't have to keep going on for a year or 2 years or 3 years. Just get over it and then stop. That's it. It's over with. And it only takes one person. One person can just stop responding to the other person's abuse. Even if the other person doesn't want to be abusive, just stop. Don't respond and let them expose themselves. Because it says something about a person's character to keep going at someone like that and making it personal. I can understand if you want to speak out, you're concerned about other people following this person, and you know that this person is a fraud. I understand, or this person is a con artist. I understand, or this person doesn't have people's best interests at heart. I understand that. But as soon as it becomes personal, and it's about personally insulting the other person, the notion of a grown adult continuing that for a year or 2 years or 3 years, it's untenable. It's irresponsible. It's dangerous. It sets a very poor example, very poor precedence for younger people who are watching. That's the real point that I want to get to. And it only takes one person to say, I'm no longer going to participate in this. It only takes one. And here's the thing. I can understand someone, disagreement, you squash it. And then so many of these people who are quote unquote conscious leaders, it's not just one person that they have a problem with. Then it turns into another person later on, then another person later on, then another person. They're always beefing. There's something wrong. I can understand maybe once, maybe twice, and short-lived, something short-lived. But when it's constant, it's over and over again, there's something that's definitely wrong. So I want to pose the question again. You know, we talked about this as I close this video out. Um, uh, we talked about this yesterday. And two of the reasons why we came up with, we see so much of this in the quote unquote black consciousness community, if you want to call it that. These so-called internet-based conscious leaders who are always beefing with each other. One of the reasons was that many of them don't have much going on in their personal life that is of love, that is of care, that gives them worth and self-value. And therefore, because they don't have love of self, love for others, that lack of love and that it turns into hate, and then they begin to hate other people. Anyone who disagrees with them, anyone who has a different philosophy, anyone who gets in the way of them receiving the attention that they need from their audience, that gives them the value, that gives them a sense of love that they don't really have in their own personal life. And of course, the other thing that we talked about was ego. A lot of this is simply ego driven. People's egos are so out of control, and they feel like they have to defend themselves. They always have to defend themselves. Someone asks a question, a legitimate question, the ego is already out of proportion, and the ego just explodes. They need the attention to feed the ego, to give them self-value, to give them self-worth. That's another reason why. It just has to do with ego. And then the persona that they present to the world is part of that ego, and that persona is what begins to take over the person's identity. We talked about this yesterday. Okay, so if this doesn't make much sense, check out the video from yesterday. So a lot of times it's the ego. The ego that's out of control. The ego needs validation. The ego gets upset. The ego is also concerned about views. It's concerned about likes. It's concerned about turning people into resources, because the more people you can convert into resources, financial resource, the more validation the ego receives. We talked about this yesterday. And then, of course, baseline. A lot of this simply has to do with money. A lot of the people fall out because of money in the first place. They fall out because of money in the first place. And money becomes a motivating factor to turn people into resources. The more people they can turn into a resource, the more money they can generate. That's another thing I want to talk about, because I don't have a problem with you know, people, if you want donations, you have products or services, there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing. But once it's about you feeding your ego feeding itself, which is perceived to be an entity outside of you, that's when it becomes a problem. And then what happens is the work that people do is not about trying to help the people. It's about feeding the ego via money, through accolades, through the likes, through the views. See, that's something that's totally different. A lot of these folk, they don't really necessarily, how you going to care about black folk? You obviously don't even care about yourself enough. In your own personal life, there's not love, so somehow you're going to love people over the internet? It doesn't work. That love is tangible. It is real. Y'all making me late. It's tangible. It's real. If you don't have it in your own personal life, you can't say that you love other people, or you love your people, and you don't love yourself, and obviously you don't love your people enough not or you don't love your people enough to conduct yourself in a manner that is expressive of love of your people, including this behavior, discontinuing the behavior of beefing with other leaders who also say that they love black people. You see the paradox here? It's a complete paradox. Yeah, black family. Okay, you say that, but look what happens with all these black leaders fighting with each other online all the time. And they always have someone to be. How you gonna say you love black people and you can't even present an accurate model of a representation of what love is amongst each other as so-called leaders? See, it doesn't even work that way. A lot of folk don't understand what I'm saying. I understand. When you have love in your life and when you've experienced it long enough, you recognize that it's something that is tangible and that is real. And that the expression of it goes beyond, and it should go beyond your own personal life. It should go into your whatever work you're doing on the internet, the individuals that you're involved with, other quote unquote leaders who are doing the same. It should be, but see, when obviously it's not there, if all of this beefing has become nothing more than negative drama that has become personal. It's about, I'm going to hurt the other person. I'm going to harm the other person. I'm going to figure out something that I can say to harm Boris Watkins, or to harm Tariq Nasheed, or to harm Umar Johnson, or to harm Yvette Carnell. And the list goes on and on. To harm Polite. I mean, it goes on and on and on. That's not an expression of love. If you have a problem with someone, state that. Get over it. Move on. But when it continues to perpetuate itself, that's because it's not about loving anybody. It's not about loving your people or trying to help your people. It's the ego. It's the competition between many of these individuals who are simply trying to vie for position to turn you into a resource for them. That's not an expression of love. So part of what I'm saying is there's nothing wrong with having a product or a service or asking for donations, but when the donations, when you ask for the donations, when you promote the products and services, and your whole platform is simply to generate income off of the people, and it's no longer about really helping the people, and you even begin to morph your content so as to compel people, it's manipulative, to compel people to buy your products and buy your services or to give you donations. That's the problem. You see the difference? If people are putting in work, it makes sense. Okay, look, if you guys want to, I can understand that. Product, services, donations, I can understand that. But there are people who have literally transformed their message so as to appeal to a particular demographic of black folk, and to manipulate them emotionally to where these people begin to feel compelled to, and in many cases shamed into, contributing financially to these individuals. There's something wrong with that. That's not an act of love. You see? So these are some of the reasons why I just wanted to reiterate that we talked about yesterday, that there's these beef, because again, the competition, the ego, the competition is a huge thing, because many of these individuals, they see each other as adversaries, because this person over here, they can cut into the resources that can be presented from a group of people. And the person over here, the other leader over here, wants access to that particular demographic of people, their resources. This other person is competition for them. So they're always in conflict. Part of the conflict, a lot of this is just simply money. Okay. So these are some of the examples, but I want to pose a question as I get in here to work. I'm already late, but they called me in late. I just got the text like 30 minutes ago. I want to pose the question: why is it that these so-called conscious internet leaders fight with each other so much? And if you have any other reasons that you can come up with, I want you to post it below. Again, I'm not taking sides. What I'm saying is, and I would hope that any of these individuals, that they would recognize that none of this is a good look, and none of this is beneficial to black people. None of it. It's totally destructive. It sets a very poor example. And it's so easy simply to say, look, I'm not going to participate in this, and just don't do it. Let go of the ego. Even let go of the sense that, I know I'm financially dependent on these people, and I know I have to. Okay, I understand that, but let that go too. Let that go. Let go of the ego. Let go of the need to have the views and the need to be able to turn people into resources. Just let go of that. Do it as an act of love. Not just for you or for the other person that you're beefing with, but also love for your own people. Show them that this can be transformed and changed, and how it can be transformed and so changed when we have conflict resolution, which is something that we definitely need in the African American community. Yes, this is an excellent example for any of these individuals to say, hey, look, I'm not going to participate in this. I'm not going to do this anymore. The other person, if they want to keep going at me, they can do that, but I'm just not going to deal with it anymore. I'm going to let them do what they're going to do, but I'm going to move on, and I'm going to be the better man or the better woman. What better message can you send to African American folk? This is a message that we all need to hear. I'm gonna leave it at that. Again, I wanted you all to answer the question, if you can. Why do so-called conscious internet-based leaders fight with each other so much? And I want you to post your comment down below. I want to thank everyone for tuning on in. Have a wonderful, wonderful Monday, and I will talk with y'all soon. Take care. Peace.